Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. I want to tell you about something that happened to me. And again, it was just yesterday. I try to spend as much time as I can outdoors just for being out there, for being able to enjoy all the aspects of being out there, which fishing is sort of brought me to in my life. But one of the things that I do now is I'm running on trails in the woods. Before, I used to run all the time down by the Ogdensburg Psych Center, and that was good, that was great. But now, being in the woods, it gives me a sense of connection and privacy that no place else can give me. So I was running through the woods yesterday, and I had my bright orange on, so the deer hunters hopefully would see me and know I wasn't a deer. And I saw a truck parked back in where I hadn't seen a truck before, and I saw bright orange of a person that was getting ready to do something on the back of the truck. So I approached him. And people don't want their space invaded, and I always try to be as friendly as I can. And I said to the guy, "Are you just going out, or are you coming back from hunting?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not hunting. I'm trapping." And he says, "I trap for a lot of the towns around here." So immediately, it gave me a means of communication that I wanted to share with this guy. And I wanted to learn from him because years ago, I was asked to speak at a trappers convention about, and this was back when Fish Cap was such a viable force here in the North Country, and they wanted me to speak to the youth about trapping. Trapping has never been a part of my history, but it's a part of our history in the North Country. It's part of what makes our area different than so many other areas in the country. And we have to remember that that it is a part of who we are, whether we agree or want to know about trapping or not. And so here's what I learned from this guy. Number one, he said that in today's world, not many people are trapping because there's the furs don't bring in a lot of money. So the tradition is waning. He says you don't see many kids anymore getting involved in trapping. And it made me think about how, whether it's trapping, fishing, hunting, whatever it is, that tradition, that aspect of what makes the people in the North Country so special is something that we really don't want to lose. Now, we can't really affect the changes in the world around us. In other words, catch and release plays a huge role in fishing. And so all the artificial fibers that make up clothing and so forth really dominate everything. And furs are not invoked for either the reason that they're not as effective, which I doubt, but also more importantly, that it's not, people don't want to see animals killed. But and I don't want to ramble on here, but I think this is important, that we be aware that the more we can reach out to share what is almost rapidly disappearing in our lifestyle with the youth, it's so critical. And I've talked about this before, how important it is to take kids fishing, not to turn them into avid fishermen, but to give them a chance to see what they're not being given a chance to see anymore, and that's the world around them. And the same thing applies to trapping. Now, here's something that I really wanted to tell you that I learned from this guy. I said, "So what are you primarily trapping?" He said, "Beavers." And I said, "Well, I do this radio thing," and I said, "I've talked to the people about how this beaver turned around in the water and came after my buddy Rust and Melissa in their canoe, and they thought, wow, they didn't know what to think, but they turned their canoe around and disappeared out of that pool." And I said, "Tell me something. Would a beaver ever bite somebody?" And because obviously they can bite a tree up and separate it. And he says to me, "My whole life, I've never had anything like that happen." And he says, I have found myself stepping inside their huts where they could reach out and attack me if they wanted to, and they never do. He said, "So no, I don't think they would bite you." I said, "Well, tell me this. I've told people that I've talked to a trapper in New England, and he said that in the past there were beavers over 100 pounds. And he kind of smiled at me. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Once I did get a beaver that stretched and he went all across his tailgate with his hands. He said, it was probably 80 pounds. And I said, well, that's a pretty big beaver. I said, do you see many fishers? He says, I've got 3 this year, but their pelts don't bring money like they once did. So he said, for me, trapping is a way for me to get out in the woods with my uncle. It's a hobby for me, and I love it, even though it's not a way of living like it once was. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.